studios. This is After 9 with Scott and Kat.
Hey now.
Hello.
What a great day, Kat. How are you?
It's okay, day. You mean weather-wise? The Oilers lost.
Yeah. Okay, well, I went to bed last night expecting a very disappointing evening. I had stayed up late to watch this hockey game, and, I don't want to take anything away from the Edmonton Oilers. To come back from down 3-0, to not give up, to show that inner strength, that never quit attitude, I love it. The fact that they lost last night, I don't think it means anything. I think it was a real back and forth game. There were long stretches, like 6 minutes without even a whistle, just back and forth, up and down the ice, chances at both ends. It could have gone either way last night, but probably, and hear me out on this, everybody, probably the better team won. And hey, you've got to win, 16 games to win the Stanley Cup after you make the playoffs. Florida did it. They won 16 games. Edmonton only won 15, and that's why they've got the cup. The Panthers do. Second year in a row making it to the Stanley Cup final. Last year they lost. This year they won it. All's well with the world. But it still doesn't make me feel any better for those guys that I feel like deserve a cup. Like Connor McDavid, I don't think there's anybody who disagrees that Connor McDavid deserves a Stanley Cup. This guy put up, 42 points in the playoffs? You've got to be kidding me. 42 points in 25 games is insane.
Yeah, it's always it's frustrating. There's a lot of players, I don't know, like recent memory, it hasn't been too bad in terms of those big players that we know of actually winning the championships, right? But in other sports, I feel like it's easier for those big players to do it. And I'm not sure there's a couple of differences, I guess, with hockey and a lot of other sports in that way. But when you think about the best of the best, when you think about like a LeBron James, if you will, right? It's like LeBron James has won of plenty of things. When you think about, even with hockey, though, it's true. You've had Sidney Crosby, who at one point was the guy, but now you still got Austin Matthews, who's got zip. It's difficult. I do feel for those players as well. They'll be fine. We all know it. They're making millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But I understand. Like that's what they want. At some points, they probably rather have the trophy over having not all their money, of course, but some of the money.
I was going to say, I feel like there's some players who are definitely in it for the money and some people who truly just want the cup. And I feel like Connor McDavid's one of those guys where the cup's that important to him. He's from Newmarket, and with the Stanley Cup run, amazing run. It's amazing how many reporters have gone back to talk to, like, oh, here's Connor McDavid's old 7th grade teacher. Here's Connor McDavid's old, hockey coach and stuff like that. They all say the same thing. The guy's work ethic is just unbelievable. The fact that he does not quit. I felt bad for him last night. He's the captain of the team, and he did the right thing. He made sure he was the last one off the ice. He got all his guys into the dressing room. Then he walked down the tunnel. And the first thing he had to do after losing the Stanley Cup last night was meet with a wall of reporters. His eyes were all bloodshot.
I hate that.
You could tell he just wanted to break down. Yeah. And he still stood there like the consummate professional answering stupid questions like, oh, Connor, how do you feel? How the fuck do you think he feels? He just lost the Stanley Cup. Why are you asking him that now?
Just because you want good TV, you bastards.
That's the thing, right? Maybe they should stop. No, I shouldn't say they should stop doing those interviews because I personally like them.
That's the thing is like people do want to watch and they're invested. And to be fair, the fans are invested and the fans are paying money to be there. The fans are paying money to be fans of those teams. So they want to hear from the team whether they win or lose and see what you have to say. So I understand why they do it. But at some times, at certain points, I'm like, I do feel bad.
So there's a couple different ways that this could go now. The way that I would like to see it go, and there are some rumors out there that could back this up. There was a lot of people that thought Connor McDavid was going to win a Stanley Cup with Edmonton last night, and then after he'd accomplished a cup for Edmonton, he was going to ask to be traded to Toronto so he could play at home in front of his family and friends and old teachers and old hockey coaches and stuff like that. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if it's going to, you've got the draft happening this Friday, and it's going to be incredible from Las Vegas. They're doing it in the Sphere. If they don't do some next level 3D type shit with the footage in the Sphere, then they've missed a great opportunity.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And you've got free agent season coming up. And we know the Leafs are going to make changes. We know they're going to. I don't see John Tavares skating for the Toronto Maple Leafs next year. I'm really iffy on whether or not Mitchell Marner is going to be playing for the Leafs next year and or William Nylander. I think the only one who's a lock is Joseph Wall. and Austin Matthews himself. I think everybody else, everything's on the table. Would getting rid of a Morgan Riley and a Mitch Marner get you a Connor McDavid? I don't know. But we'll see. Either way, McDavid still has a chance to win a cup, and Austin Matthews has a chance to win a cup. And if they could do it together wearing blue and white, oh my God, this young Leaf fan would be so fucking happy. But anyway, that's sports. Let's move on to some other things that are happening here. I told you it was a great day because I went to bed last night expecting the worst. Edmonton had just lost, and I thought, fuck, all right, fine. Let me see what's going on over in this by-election that they're having in Toronto. And when I went to bed, the Liberal candidate, who's the incumbent, actually, I guess I shouldn't even say incumbent. She's running for the Liberals. It was a Liberal seat, but it's replacing Carolyn Bennett, or Carolyn Parrish, one of them, who stepped down, gone. So they were trying to elect a new liberal to hold that riding, and they selected the chief of staff of Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. And they had every cabinet minister, including the prime minister himself there in the riding, campaigning to try and hang on to this seat in Toronto because it would send a bad message. The Liberals have held this seat for 40 years, and it was going to be close. When I went to bed, the Liberal candidate was up by a percentage point. When I woke up this morning, still close, 3 ridings to report. Since then, they've finished counting all the ballots, and the Conservative candidate won. He's the only Conservative in the entire city of Toronto. And I got to think that Toronto is probably asking themselves, what the heck happened here? What's going on? Why are we changing? Something that's been liberal for so long to now vote Conservative has to indicate that there is a problem there. And I'm sure you're going to hear a lot about it today, everybody. I'm not even going to spend any time on it because no matter what you watch, if it's got news or politics involved, they're going to be dissecting this. A lot of people are saying that this is the reason, or this is the final nail in the coffin to show Justin Trudeau that he has to step down and let a new leader lead. Otherwise, this is going to be the fate of many, 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 many Liberal MPs in Toronto and across Canada. So we'll see where it goes. Today, though, is a big day for a different reason. The capital gains tax kicks in today. The changes, despite significant pushback from businesses and doctors' groups, the finance minister says this is to ensure fairness. So for anybody who doesn't know, this is the way it works with this new capital gains tax. They're boosting from 1/2 to 2/3 the taxable portion of the profits on the sale of assets, like stocks or a home or real estate that's not your primary residence. Going from 1/2 to 2/3 is a major jump. But the inclusion rate is going to remain at 50% for individuals, capital gains up to $250,000. So if you're an individual and you sell your cottage that your parents left you, as long as you don't make more than $250,000, you'll still pay the 50%. If you make more than $250,000, which is quite reasonable and almost expected in a lot of cases, now you're going to pay the 2/3, and that's going to be tens, 20s, and 30s of thousands of dollars. It's amazing how much people are going to pay. So case in point, there's no shortage of homes out there right now. Not necessarily in the newer suburbs and subdivisions, but mainly in like older cities, Toronto and places like that. Some of those homes were purchased back in like the 60s and 70s for like $100 and a bag of apples.
And they used to barter. My firstborn and a twig.
Now, for some reason, those houses are selling for over $1 million. So, of course, someone's going to make more than $250,000, which means they're going to pay the 2/3 rate, which is a heck of a lot of money. So that kicks in today, everybody. A new study. No, I don't want to do the study yet. Have you been following this? I don't even know how to describe it. There was a group of guys, and they were playing soccer in Toronto. It was about a week and a half ago. And then they were chilling afterwards in the bleachers, and some men run up and started shooting.
Jesus. What the hell happened there?
Well,
Scary shit out there, by the way. I hate these. Like, there's so many random stories. But what was this one about?
I was watching a news conference yesterday with Superintendent Ron Taverner in Toronto. Ron used to be a good guest on our show.
Yeah.
I miss that guy. He was there to announce that they'd made the first arrest, charged with first-degree murder in this deadly mass shooting of a 14-year-old.
Jeez.
14. 2 men were killed. Others were wounded in the shooting. Police say 9 men were gathered in a parking lot after a pickup soccer game. When a pickup truck arrived, 2 suspects got out and started firing off rounds before they drove off. The teen is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 7 counts of attempted murder. He's a 14-year-old. Where did a 14-year-old get a gun?
Yeah.
Who set this 14-year-old up to go in and ambush a group of guys that had just finished playing a soccer game?
And I'm sure they're not giving us those details.
They're not yet.
Yeah.
Well, there is another suspect, at least one other one out there. No reason to think that they're much different. I'm going to guess early teens. I don't know what it's going to... Do the cops know what's going on? That the older people, the gangbangers, the ones who would actually do jail time, are actively recruiting young people to do this shit because they get much better protections under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. And by the time they turn into an adult, they won't have a record anymore, even if they shot 2 people in cold blood and injured 7 others.
Yeah. I'm sure they know. They know a lot more than they're going to say. Right? And I think that we all know this because if they're on this, these are ongoing investigations too. They can't say too much more because they don't want to let anyone know that they're on to whatever is happening. So that could absolutely be it.
But I mean, when shitheads are out there contracting kids to commit their crimes, and they can actually reason it out with the kid that if you actually get caught, nothing bad is going to happen. You're not going to jail or anything like that, and you won't even have a criminal record. And as long as you don't get caught, enjoy this $1,000 that we're going to give you, or this $1,500 that we're going to give you. Kids are being kids. Obviously being heavily influenced and armed, though. We got to go after whoever it is that's recruiting these kids to get them into shit like this, because I guarantee you, a 14-year-old did not have beef with 9 adults that were out there playing soccer on a nice night in the city. It just didn't happen that way. It's very scary, though. Let's go to driving. We talk from time to time about cannabis here on the show. New study out of UBC, the University of British Columbia, has found that cannabis is the most common impairing substance detected among Canadian drivers through blood testing after a crash. Alcohol had been number 1. It's now number 2. The study, again from UBC, analyzed more than 10,000 drivers involved in collisions across the country. They found more than half of the injured drivers tested positive for at least one impairing substance. Among the group, 16.6% had cannabis in their bloodstream, 16% had alcohol. So we're talking a half a percentage point. But still, that's impactful. That's a lot of people with cannabis in their system. What I'm wondering, though, is, and I don't know much about the methodology of this survey, but that's a concern if that many drivers that are getting into accidents have cannabis in their blood. Is that just because cannabis stays in your system longer and it's harder to tell if they just smoked it or if they smoked it 3 days ago? Whereas alcohol, it's very pronounced.
Yeah.
It'll be in your system for however many hours it takes to get out, and then it's gone.
Yeah. And that could be it. That could be it. If they're not giving us, if there's no way to trace that in terms of exactly when the edible was taken or the pot was smoked, whatever the case is, then yeah, I would assume that may be one of the reasons why.
They say Atlantic Canada led the country in the proportion of injured drivers more likely to have used weed. I would like to know more about that. This was a concern when we were talking about legalization. We knew that there'd be some people pulled over who had cannabis in their system or charged with impaired driving because they were high, not drunk. This is the first study I've seen, though, that said cannabis was more prevalent than alcohol. That could also be, though, that there's a heck of a lot more people using cannabis to get their high than using alcohol than ever before. In a lot of studies that come out these days, they say cannabis is even more popular than alcohol, and I can only assume that has everything to do with price, convenience. Well, there's a lot of reasons. Nobody likes to wake up with a hangover, and you don't with pot most of the time, whereas you do with alcohol.
Yeah,
that's just one of the reasons.
Sure. And people of all ages are taking it, I think, more so than it used to be like a youth thing, right? Where it's like now people of all ages are taking it, you know?
Yeah, for
Moms,
sure.
grandmas, and grandpas, and everyone's fucking taking it. Maybe not being aware that it's in your system for longer.
Every time I go into a pot store, you get a real cross-section of people. You get senior citizens in there that are just looking for a little high. Seniors in looking for edibles and teas and shit that'll get them high. And I'm here for it. Good. Do whatever you got to do to take the edge off. For years, people have been, I'm going to have a drink and relax. Well, you've got alternatives now. So maybe that's a contributing factor to this. Either way, something to watch. An unflattering internal review proves that Scott was right. You ready for it, Kat?
Sure.
These are government numbers, by the way. Higher taxes. Those nasty warning labels. Warning labels on each individual cigarette. Generic packaging. stored out of sight of the public. All the stores had to put in all those new cupboards and shelves and stuff.
Yeah.
All because of cigarettes and the Tobacco Act. According to the government's own numbers, it has not had an impact on getting smokers to give up the smoking habit. The group, Physicians for a Smoke-Free Canada, says the federal government hasn't promised any new remedies after the rate of people who quit smoking has stayed more or less the same for the last 20 years. The numbers were tabled in the House of Commons late last week by the addictions minister. I knew that wasn't going to work. I knew because I was a smoker. Hey, just looking at these gross packages doesn't make a smoker less likely to smoke because it doesn't go after the reason that people choose to smoke.
Does it deter people from starting, though?
I don't
I'm not
think
saying
so.
that it does. I'm just asking, like, is that something that they're looking into? Because if you're, all you need to do is really look around. Less people are smoking cigarettes than they used to be, for sure.
Absolutely.
At a certain point, everyone smoked way back when. Remember? Everyone was smoking, in non-fucking stop in what is it, like 40s, 50s, 60s even? 70s maybe?
At one point, doctors used to smoke during your appointment.
Right? So, we went from that to, holy shit, this thing might give you cancer, among other things. Maybe some people should stop. And that did deter a lot of people, but there's still a population that did. And then you know what? We shouldn't even allow this inside. This is quite bad for you. And then they took it away from being inside most places in the world, or I should say at least in North America. And then they did that. And really, you don't see as many, especially young people, but they vape, which isn't necessarily all that. I'm not going to say, please consult your doctor, blah, blah, blah. But vaping isn't good for you either, So, but anyway, that said, there's less tobacco smokers, I should say.
Yeah, there's less tobacco smokers, but a lot of people, to your point, have replaced that with vapes, and some people have even replaced it with pre-rolled joints and such. Yeah. Let me show you a couple of warnings that are floating around out there. This one here is the healthy lung with COPD.
Okay.
If anybody has never smoked a cigarette and they say, you know what, Kat, I want a cigarette, give me one. And then they look at that package. I don't know if they're going to look at that package and say, you know what, I changed my mind, forget about it.
Yeah, I think
Here's one of a toe with gangrene.
Oh my God, that's awful.
And that one is so fucking unrealistic. When has anybody ever even seen that or heard of that happening? Gangrene from smoking.
Yeah.
And they've just gone so over the top. Labels on every cigarette. It's a waste of time and money. And now we've got government numbers to prove it doesn't work.
You know what's so crazy is that, and it worked for me, at least for those formative years of your life where you maybe did feel pressure. And for me, so growing up in the, late 90s, early 2000s and having I didn't really have a ton of friends that smoked, but I did have a couple that did smoke. It was going to those don't smoke things that they had. And by that, I mean, maybe this will jog some people's memories. I used to have to, in Cambridge, it was at an old, I don't even know where it was, a convention center or a hall of a hotel room or a hotel or something like that. But they set up all these different displays. One of them was, what we learned was like an actual dead person's black lung. So they showed you what a pink lung, healthy lung looks like, and then a black lung. That stuck with me. Actually seeing it in real life. The picture, like, I just kind of find it funny, but I'm also older, so I'm not in one of those positions where it's like, come on, start smoking. It's not for me, right? It just never has been. It never has been. I've taken puffs here and there in my life, never been interested. But for me, I go back to that black lung. So that did work in person, but I don't think the packaging is really going to get most people. I do agree with that. I'm not sure what the deal would be or how they could go about it. Maybe they should just put an actual once was live black lung sitting there on the counter. Maybe that would help them if that's what they really want to do. But they won't, because they probably don't care. They're just checking boxes.
But again, you're absolutely right. It's box checked. Hey, look, we did something. It's some of the most strict rules in the world, and we're doing great. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm going to suggest something. And I've suggested this in the past for different subjects, but it applies to tobacco as well. If you really, really, really want people to quit, if the goal is to make people quit, stop talking about it. Stop making a big deal of it. Doing things like putting warning labels on each individual cigarette.
Did the government put money into it or no? They just take money by taxes.
Oh, no,
right?
They only take money by taxes for that.
Yeah, okay.
If they cut the price, and it's all tax. You can get a pack of cigarettes for about $5 to $6, but with taxes and such, it comes out to about $18, Some places sell it for 17.
Okay.
Depending on where you buy it, apparently. Sometimes you can get a 2-pack for 33, I'm told. Great. Well, listen, you've made them really, really, really expensive. It doesn't need to be that way. You're obviously just taking that money and putting it to other purposes, not reinvesting it into healthcare, which is what the original point of raising the excise tax was. It was supposed to be, we're going to raise the taxes on smokes to pay for the healthcare. Well, the healthcare system's falling into shambles anyway. We got to go back to what Jean Chrétien did when he was prime minister. The last time we had a good liberal prime minister, he cut the taxes on cigarettes when he was first elected. And it didn't see an increase in smoking by any means. In fact, what it did do is it cut off the black market. Not as many people doing that route.
Sure.
And that's just step one in a natural de-escalation of the smoking. Right now, I don't know if anything could stop hardcore smokers from smoking, because right now everybody's stressed and they're broke and they smoke because they're broke and they're broke because they smoke. You see what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Everybody get out of it. Leave smokers alone.
You know, and that's why I mean, this is how I come at it. It's like, just because and it's not me. That's your body, for example. And I'm not going to fucking tell you what to do with it. I'm that way with no matter who you're talking about. Even if it's someone who eats fast food every fucking day, someone who smokes every day. All that matters is that you care what you put into your own body. And by God, of course, don't smoke around kids or any of that other bullshit, blah, blah, blah. We can all agree with that, right? But aside from that, sometimes putting a little bit too much attention on it is kind of a waste of time.
It totally is. And also it...
And they know. By the way, smokers fucking know. Are you aware that it's unhealthy for you?
Of course.
Yeah. Like, you're not dumb. You fucking understand that. Anyone who smokes cigarettes knows full well it's not good for them. They're not doing it for their health. They're doing it for many other reasons that the government's not going to be able to come along and cure for them.
Does everybody understand? You know what I mean? You're 1,000% right. Kids like to rebel. If the goal is to not get kids to smoke, again, stay out of it, government. Stay the hell out of it. Kids like to do what they're told not to do. It starts when they're young and it lasts usually until they're about 30 to 35. That's just the way it works. Government saying, don't do this, it's bad. We're going to tax the living shit out of you, blah, blah, blah. It's not working. You guys got to come up with a new strategy if that really is the goal. If the goal is just to suck as much excise tax as you can until people are broke and can't afford to smoke anymore, that's a whole other story. I just wish that they would say that. Okay, one more thing on the more serious note, and then we're going to have some fun with some other things. I want to talk about cheerleaders coming up in a second.
Okay.
And we will. First off, pretty historic day. A chartered plane carrying WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has landed in Thailand for a refueling stop. He's on his way to enter a plea deal with the U.S. government that will free him and resolve the legal case against him over the publication of classified documents. Assange is going to appear in a U.S. court in the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands. That's in the Northwest Pacific. A U.S. judge or U.S. Justice Department filing says he's going to plead guilty under the Espionage Act, a charge of conspiring to unlawfully obtain and disseminate classified information. Afterwards, he's expected to return to his home country of Australia.
Okay.
So he's basically free after this. He's going to admit guilt, and they're going to let him go.
And they're going to let him go. And he can live wherever he wants to, though? I mean, you're saying he's returning home, but could this potentially give him the ability to live elsewhere?
Well, that's not clearly spelled out. But one thing I will say is the fact that Julian Assange is willingly going to touch U.S. soil today leads me to believe they've got an ironclad deal and they're going to let him go.
Okay, interesting. I watched a documentary and I do wish that I remember the name of it. Maybe you know, because I think it was a Netflix doc about him. But anyway, if you're listening to this going, I've heard that name, but I have no idea what this guy's all about. Look it up. There's lots of documentaries. I'm sure all the streamers have something on Julian Assange, but look it up. It's interesting.
This is one of those weird things where he tried to be a whistleblower. The problem was he was blowing against the government, and the government didn't want to be exposed for a lot of the shit that they were doing. So he went out under the guise of the public have a right to know, under the guise of we protect whistleblowers. Government turned on him. They would have killed him. Apparently, I won't even say which one, someone who used to reside in the White House actually suggested a drone strike on him to kill him, to shut him up about his secrets. And the thing is, we don't even know what we don't know. What else does Julian Assange know? And is he going to keep Is he going to keep blowing these secrets? Is he going to
I
keep
want
telling
him
us?
too. Fuck, I'm here for these kinds of people. We need it.
Politicians flat out lie to our face. They make fun of us every day by not answering questions when they're supposed to be accountable. Here's someone who came out with information that we all deserve to know about what our government, not our government, their government is up to, and they tried to fucking kill the guy. They want to arrest him and jail him for life. I thought that we protected whistleblowers.
Old now, but the documentary, I think this is the one I watched because, like I said, I think there's multiple, but Risk 2016 and Apple TV Plus has it currently. But anyway, if you're interested in a good documentary, it's very interesting.
Speaking of streaming and such, Netflix's documentary about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader.
Yes. Is that any good?
Cheerleaders. Shows how being the glamorous face of the most valuable team in sports doesn't get you rich. Apparently people like it, but apparently it's a very sad story. While the lowest paid Dallas Cowboy player makes over $1 million a year and never sees the field, a team cheerleader makes about $22,000 a year. That's about as much as a fast food worker would make in America. The Cowboys' chief brand officer defends the low salary in the series, saying the women get to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Oh my God, that is wow.
Pay your mortgage with that shit.
Holy fuck. That's like a kind of like a gaslightish response for me. Like you should be grateful.
Grateful to be a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader.
How great of you. You might as well throw in a sweetheart while you're at it. Wow, that's unbelievable.
What an asinine thing to say,
Yeah.
right? You know, I've heard stories over the years about NFL cheerleaders, how they are often mistreated, abused, taken advantage of, and so on and so forth. To actually see it, though, that's a different story. I don't know if once this documentary is more widely seen by more people, if they're going to have cheerleaders in football anymore. It's
Interesting.
2024, and hey, don't get me wrong. I think what they do is a talent. I like the fact that there are cheerleading competitions and people actually train to do this.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that cheerleaders who do a hell of a lot more at a game than the guy riding the pine over there on the sidelines, that fucking guy's getting $1 million and he's never even going to play. The cheerleaders are out there working their butts off for 22 grand a year.
That's not right. I know. I know some of them aren't necessarily cheerleaders depending on which, like football, yes. But even for basketball, for example, those dance crews, they do such a good job. You could tell they rehearse like crazy. I don't know what they get paid either. But I mean, you might as well take a whole look at the whole thing, and be like, make sure that you're giving them enough just for what they're doing. And maybe they only come in, maybe they only practice once a week. I doubt it, by the way, because definitely during the season, they're not practicing once a week. It's more than that.
The value of the brand, Dallas Cowboys cheerleader.
Yeah, the brand itself. You're right.
What do you got? 10 of them? I'll make
Yeah.
it. You're spending less than $250,000 on this, yet your lowest paid player is getting $1 million and he doesn't even fucking play.
Yeah.
Do we need cheerleaders anymore? I mean, I go to a fair bit of football games and I don't even pay attention to the cheerleaders. I'm watching the game. I don't know who goes there to see them, but I'm going to suggest here that if they're part of the overall entertainment, part of the overall experience, if it's just as important to see Tiffany and Bonnie do a fucking backflip with pom-poms on as it is to see Mahomes complete a pass to Kelsey, there should be a much more equitable pay structure, or just axe the whole thing altogether. Maybe it's time to stop this shit.
What about the mascots? Does NFL have mascots?
They do.
Remind me. Don't they get paid well, or is that just what I've heard?
So a good friend of mine actually used to be a mascot, and he got his path to pro sports was started off as a mascot, eventually went on to do the game day operations of the Los Angeles Clippers, and now is one of the higher ups with the San Francisco 49ers.
Nice.
So he's gone lacrosse, NBA, NFL, doing great. So there is a path to making a lot of money
so
as a mascot. Some of them get paid very well, but a lot of them don't. I'm thinking it's comparable to what the cheerleaders make. And some of those mascots are in better shape than the damn players are.
And they're entertaining it. Now, those are like the mascots are fun to watch. Like even in the NHL, any sport really. I do watch the mascots, especially the ones with like so much energy, which they all should have. Even though some of them are Like, some are supposed to be assholes, and they are assholes, and they act the part and look the part, which is great. But, I mean, overall, it's part of the entertainment package, just like the cheerleaders are. It's worth taking a look at, or at least cheerleaders to take a look at that and go, what am I worth? Like, is this worth my time? Because maybe the answer for you is no. Maybe you stand up for yourself and say, either pay us this amount, whatever it is, or go take part in dance competitions where maybe you can make more money. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can, but I'd imagine you make some money.
Sure.
Competitions.
Is having the cheerleaders still objectifying women, or is this an empowerment thing? Because I'm really kind of on the fence about whether or not we need cheerleaders anymore.
I know they opened it up a lot more, by the way. When you say cheerleaders, there's a fair bit of men who are involved in the... Again, I don't know if I call them cheerleaders or dance squad, if that's like specifically a dance squad, but there's a fair bit of men. So it's definitely changed a lot. It used to be just women, just not a lot of clothes, like all those things. And now it's like men and women, and they can wear like khaki short pants or whatever. And whatever, it's all good. So it has changed quite a bit. I wouldn't say necessarily it's demeaning or anything like that. I don't find it to be.
It's demeaning that the shittiest player on the team gets $1 million and these girls get 22.
The money's demeaning. You're right.
That's what I feel upset about. A medical team in the U.S. has performed a rare kidney transplant while the patient was awake throughout the procedure and discharged the next day. Instead of using general anesthetics, which require the patient to be intubated, doctors used a spinal epidural shot, which is also used during C-sections and routine colonoscopies. Doctors hope to offer more surgeries like this to patients who have lung disease or who are older or who have diseases that may pose a higher risk when under general anesthetic. This is progress. This is good, but fuck no. Am I going to be awake while I'm getting a kidney removed?
Yeah, that's intense.
Not a chance. Get out of here. Put me out.
You know, for the first time ever, I had to get one of my old cavities refilled, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't even use numbing. This dentist was good. But anyway, even that I found incredible. But this is next fucking level. By the way, I've had a spinal because I had a C-section. It's fucking off. Like, they hold you and they're like, don't fucking move or you could be paralyzed. Okay, here we go. So I couldn't even imagine all of those things happening while you're awake too.
How thick is the needle?
Very
for the epidural?
large.
I've heard that it is like getting stabbed.
Humongous, and it lasts a long time, and they have to physically like hold you in place so that you don't flinch, even though you want to flinch, and they'll numb the area, but you want to flinch because you feel it. It might not feel painful necessarily, but it's a weird feeling.
There are thousands of babies born every single day. That means there are thousands of mothers every single day who may or may not have to have this extremely uncomfortable procedure just to have a tolerable level of pain during birthing. Why haven't we figured out an easier way? Is anybody working on that?
That's a good point. What are we doing with that? It is 2024. Can we not come up with something else? Can't we pop a pill or something?
Seriously, anything. I got that cortisone shot in my ankle, and it's like probably an eighth the size of what an epidural is.
How's it feeling, by the way?
I'm really glad you asked, because I'm sure there's other people wondering.
Yeah.
That stuff is fucking miracle.
It works.
Oh my God.
Good.
Listen, let me tell you something. If your doctor ever suggests to you he's going to give you a cortisone shot, I'm going to say it hurts like hell going in because that needle is thick.
Yeah.
But you don't feel any pain. I mean, this is my ankle, though, and this is the problem. It was badly sprained like 12, 13, 14 years ago. I'm just now preparing to have it surgically repaired, and that's going to happen in the fall. However, the doctor wanted me to have a cortisone shot in the meantime to take away some of the pain, in case you missed the story. That's the backstory. The problem is, it feels so pain-free that I feel like I'm doing a hell of a lot more damage to it. At least when it hurt, when I walked, I could at least sort of adjust. And I know that I walked with a limp. I still do. But I made adjustments on the fly. Even if it hurt, I wanted to at least try to be walking somewhat normally. Now it feels like a perfectly fine ankle. It feels like the other one. But I'm walking like on the side of my foot now, and I don't even feel it. Yeah. So I feel like it's just going to break before I even get into the surgery.
Oh, my gosh. Well, at least you'll get the surgery faster.
And I probably won't even feel it. Yeah, I'm telling you guys, that cortisone stuff is real
Interesting.
legit. As for this surgery thing, again, it's an incredible innovation. The fact that doctors figured out how to do this, do a kidney transplant to the point where the guy left the hospital the next day.
Well, I think that's key. And for people who don't understand why that's a big deal is because of the amount of medication that you're on and under, they have to keep you at least overnight. I'm not sure about in that particular case, but at least overnight, if not 2 nights, they usually recommend, depending on what you're under. And it's because of that. So if they can knock out the anesthesia, I wonder how, by the way, how people who do that for a living feel. Anesthesiologists make a lot of cash.
Yes, they do.
A ton of fucking money. The most in that surgical room, they make the most because they have a lot of responsibility. I wonder how they feel about more procedures doing away with it. Anyway, nonetheless, that's the reason why this guy was able to like up and leave right away, is because they didn't have to monitor him as long.
Here's my only concern about this, though, and I feel like this is a valid concern. Surgery is not just what you can see. And fine, you're awake for this kidney transplant, and if you want to look down, you can see them take the kidney right out of your body.
Ugh.
But again, it's not just the sight. Your other senses come into play here too. In a surgical setting,
You're going to feel it.
there's smells,
Yeah, you're going to feel it. You're going to smell it.
there's sounds.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
All shit that you
All
don't
the
want to hear.
things.
Well, I had this conversation with my surgeon, the guy who's going to do my ankle. Great doctor, by the way. And I didn't know that I was going to be under for this procedure. And I said, can you maybe just freeze me or something like that? And he said, I'm going to be doing some stuff to your foot that you do not want to ever remember me doing.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me. And that's why I guess in circumstances where it makes sense or you've got the right patient, this is good, it's progress, but God, I worry about that.
Okay, so
I don't
know-
think I ever want to be awake for it.
Dude, you don't. I'm telling you, you don't. I know someone who delivered PPE for hospitals, okay? And so part of his job is to go into the rooms for the surgeries. Just so you know, if you're getting your shoulder done, they're up on the table like a fucking monkey. And they're hammering it, like fucking hammering it, like someone building a goddamn deck on your body. You don't want to be awake. You would have PTSD like crazy over any of those sounds. Even being awake, obviously for C-sections, you have to be. All of it. Sounds, you still feel things. You still feel pulls. You might not feel pain, but you feel pulling. It's a weird feeling. It's not like something I'd fucking recommend, but of course, when you have to do it, you have to do it. But the smells, the sounds, all of it.
All of it's not good.
All of it.
Fuck, we keep running out of time on this podcast. Okay, I'm going to do...
How many people are passed out anyway right now? Because we just went really gross.
Yeah, I know, that's true, actually.
We went full-blown faint.
Yeah. When's the last time, maybe not even the last time, you've raw dogged it before, right?
I'm sorry, what?
This TikTok challenge just makes me lose even more faith in the kids. TikTok's latest challenge, quote unquote, is called raw dogging a flight or barebacking a flight. But it has nothing to do with sex. I think most people form an image in their head when I say raw dog or bareback. Those are the terms that we know for a specific reason, but again, this has nothing to do with sex. Some of the TikTok users here are posting videos of themselves intentionally avoiding all entertainment for an entire flight. The only thing you can do is stare at the flight map on the seatback screen in front of you. Some don't even do that. The real diehards also won't eat or drink anything or even get up to use the bathroom. It's a pretty dumb challenge, I think. I don't really know what the point is, but I'm more fixated on the fact that they decided to call this phenomenon raw dogging, something I thought meant something else. And I'm pretty sure it still does. They just didn't know when they named this challenge.
I know. Are we sure they didn't know? Yeah, maybe they didn't know. That's just a funny way to say it. Like, could you imagine that you did that? So let's say that the new raw dogging, and you're on the plane and then you're just about to take off and your parents are like, have a safe flight, baby. And these kids are like, yeah, no problem. I'm just going to raw dog it all the way on this flight. Bye, Mom. Like, what? We got to educate y'all. That's not raw dogging. Okay? Y'all don't even know.
If that was raw dogging, I would not want a raw dog anymore. Never.
But have you ever been there before on a flight, though? Not raw dogging in that sense. I mean, like actually looking at the map because you're just bored of everything else. I've been there before on like longer flights where I'm like, okay, I already watched a movie. My eyes hurt. I don't really want to look at my iPad anymore, for example. Looking around's boring, or the person you're with is like sleeping because they can sleep blissfully on a plane. I can't. and there's nothing really else to do. You've already read a bit of your book or whatever. You can't sleep, and you're just like, I'll fucking stare at the map. I've done it. Just stare at the map. So I actually have raw dogged on a plane.
I actually like the map.
Do you
in
like
fact,
it?
I'd like to see a little more innovation in the map because while the map is helpful, it's still very basic. It's certainly not Google Earth or anything like that.
No, it should be, though.
We could definitely improve the map, maybe get the map a little more interactive, maybe be able to search for your house, tell me how far I am away from my office or whatever. Stuff like that might be good. They could improve that.
Yeah, why don't they have that, though? They absolutely could do that. I mean, it would take a little bit of money.
Not enough people have called and asked for our opinion. That's the
biggest
here.
problem they have.
And if they go out of business, they know why. Oh, speaking of which, Hooters is in trouble.
Yeah, they're the next. Are they going to file?
I don't know. The Hooters, and they're comparing this to Red Lobster already because this is how it unfolded with Red Lobster right before they filed for Chapter 11. They say Hooters is the latest restaurant chain to abruptly start shuttering locations. Like other struggling chains like Red Lobster, Hooters is blaming the rising cost of rent and food. A raft of closures happened over the weekend, others in recent weeks. Florida, Kentucky, Rhode Island, Texas, Virginia. The company is not thought to be in a dire financial situation or not as bad as Red Lobster, but when this happened at Red Lobster, they filed for Chapter 11. I don't want to live in a world with no Hooters. Nobody makes chicken wings like Hooters does. Nobody sells them that way.
When was the last time you went to Hooters, though?
Okay, so the last time I was in Hooters, I was in downtown Indianapolis with my dad.
Okay.
And Indianapolis is a great city, by the way. I know most people haven't been there, but they've got those scooters that you can ride around the city. And nobody gives a shit if you just cranked back like a pitcher of beer when you jump on one.
Yeah.
So that's what Dad and I did, and we had a great time. We even went back to Hooters for a nightcap, but it was also the closest one to the hotel. Legit, though, they do have the best chicken wings.
Yeah.
Nobody else makes them like that.
People say that. I know. And it's kind of sad. We don't know if Toronto's affected with this, by the way, do we? Is that like a bit of a standalone? Because there's not a lot of locations in Canada at all. Are there?
No, there's not. I don't know.
But still,
I don't know where it's going to go.
But still, for those who cross the border, and that's one of the places they like to go, just be warned. You might want to go get some soon before it shuts down.
If you're a parent of a young child, I'm going to suggest boys because that was my experience. But from having done the dozens and dozens and dozens of road trips I've done with my son over the years to different sporting events, one thing I can tell you is, holy shit, you get a team full of anywhere between 10 and 14-year-old boys and say, we're going to Hooters between the games, you will never see kids move faster. That is motivation that money cannot buy.
Yeah.
Tits and wings. Kids love it.
They're here for it.
Have a great day, everybody. We will see you tomorrow.
Bye.